Mike Tyson is 58 years old now. He's had 58 professional fights. He's won 50 of them. He was the youngest heavyweight champion in history. He destroyed Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. He earned over $300 million. But when you ask most people what they remember about Mike Tyson, they don't talk about the championships or the knockouts. They talk about the 28th of June, 1997. The night Mike bit Evander Holyfield's ear, twice. That moment defines me more than anything else I ever did, Mike has said. More than becoming champion. More than the 91 seconds against Spinks. People remember the ear bite, and I hate that. But it's true. Today, Mike has made peace with what happened. He's apologized to Holyfield. They've become friends. But Mike knows he can never erase that moment. I was so angry that night, Mike has said. I'd spent 3 years in prison. I'd lost everything. I'd been humiliated by Holyfield 7 months earlier. And the headbutts. The constant headbutts. I just snapped. I lost control. And I did something I'll regret for the rest of my life. What happens when rage and humiliation meet in a boxing ring? What happens when a fighter who's already broken decides he'd rather be disqualified than beaten again? The answer was written in 3 seconds on the 28th of June 1997, when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear and changed his legacy forever. Before the ear bite, before the rage, Mike Tyson was a kid from Brownsville, Brooklyn, who'd been saved by Cus D'Amato at age 13. By that age, Mike had been arrested over 30 times for robbery, assault, and theft. He was running with street gangs, stealing from stores, fighting anyone who looked at him wrong. He was heading for prison or death. But Cus saw potential beneath the rage. He took Mike to Catskill, New York, became his legal guardian, and trained him in the peak Abu style. Cus promised Mike he'd be the youngest heavyweight champion in history. On the 22nd of November 1986, at 20 years old, Mike fulfilled that promise. By 1988, Mike was the most dominant heavyweight in the world, destroying Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. But after Cus died in November 1985, Mike became vulnerable. He married Robin Givens in 1988, a toxic marriage that destroyed him emotionally. He fired Kevin Rooney in December 1988, cutting the last link to Cus's discipline. He lost to Buster Douglas in February 1990. And then came prison. On the 19th of July 1991, Mike was accused of rape in Indianapolis. On the 26th of March 1992, he was sentenced to 6 years. He served 3 years, from March 1992 to March 1995 at the Indiana Youth Center. He went in at 25 years old, he came out at 28. Those are the prime heavyweight years. The years when speed, reflexes, and timing are at their peak, and Mike spent them in a cell, lifting weights and getting bigger, heavier, angrier. Prison made me angrier, Mike has said. I went in bitter about losing to Douglas, about Robin, about everything, and I came out more bitter, more rageful. I didn't know how to channel it anymore. Cus had taught me to channel my anger into disciplined violence. But Cus was gone, Kevin Rooney was gone, and the discipline was gone. All that was left was the anger, pure, uncontrolled anger. When Mike was released from prison on the 25th of March 1995, he returned to boxing. But this wasn't the Mike Tyson who dominated from 1986 to 1990. That Mike had been lightning fast, with perfect head movement and the peekaboo-style Cus D'Amato had drilled into him. That Mike had destroyed Trevor Berbick in 2 rounds to become the youngest champion at 20. That Mike had knocked out Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. That Mike had been unstoppable. But prison had changed him. His comeback fight against Peter McNeely lasted 89 seconds and ended in chaos. Then came Frank Bruno and Bruce Seldon. Mike won both fights, but he didn't look the same. He was heavier, fighting at 220 pounds instead of his peak 215 to 218. He was slower. His footwork was heavy. The peak Abu head movement was gone. He was just loading up on power shots, trying to knock people out with one punch. By late 1996, Mike was given a title shot against WBA heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield. Holyfield was 34 years old. He'd been a champion at cruiserweight and heavyweight. He was disciplined, smart, strong, and tough. But Mike was the favorite. The fight was scheduled for the 9th of November 1996 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Mike was supposed to destroy Holyfield. That's not what happened. From the opening bell, Holyfield dominated. He used his head. Literally, he butted Mike repeatedly. In the very first clinch, Holyfield's head came up and caught Mike over the right eye, opening a cut. Mike's corner protested to referee Mitch Halpern, but Halpern ruled it accidental. Mike's eye began to swell, his face was cut, and Mike couldn't land anything clean. Holyfield was too strong, too smart, too composed, and the headbutts kept coming. In the third round, Holyfield hurt Mike with a left hook that made Mike's legs wobble. Mike stumbled backward. He recovered, but he was losing badly. By the middle rounds, Mike's right eye was nearly swollen shut. By the 10th round, Mike was exhausted and frustrated. In the 11th round, Holyfield landed a combination that hurt Mike badly. Mike was against the ropes, covering up, unable to fight back. Referee Mitch Halpern stepped in and stopped the fight. TKO. Mike Tyson had been stopped for the first time in his career. The humiliation was complete. All he could think about were the headbutts. After the loss to Holyfield, Mike was furious. Not at himself, at Holyfield, at the referee, at the headbutts. He was using his head like a weapon. Mike said after the fight, "The referee didn't do anything about it. I was getting cut up, and nobody cared. This wasn't a fair fight." Mike demanded a rematch. He wanted revenge. He wanted to prove that the headbutts were the only reason he lost. The rematch was scheduled for the 28th of June 1997, again at the MGM Grand. The hype was enormous. Mike promised he'd knock Holyfield out in the first round. Holyfield said he'd beat Mike again the same way. During the 6-month build-up, Mike's training camp was chaotic. He was heavier than ever, around 222 pounds. His trainers were Don King loyalists, not Cus-D'Amato disciples. They didn't push him, and Mike was obsessed with the headbutts from the first fight. He watched tape of it over and over. In interviews, he kept bringing it up. When asked what he'd do if Holyfield headbutted him again, Mike's answer was chilling. "I'll do what I have to do. I'm not going to let him get away with it again." Nobody knew what that meant, but looking back, it was a warning. The weigh-in was tense. Mike stared at Holyfield with pure hatred. Holyfield stared back, calm and composed. There was no respect, just anger. On the night of the fight, over 16,000 fans packed the MGM Grand. Millions watched on pay-per-view. This was supposed to be Mike's redemption. Instead, it became the most infamous moment in sports history. The 28th of June 1997, MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas. Mike Tyson walked to the ring wearing black trunks. He looked focused, angry, ready. Evander Holyfield walked to the ring calm and composed. The referee was Mills Lane, one of the most respected officials in boxing. The opening bell rang, and immediately, it was the same as the first fight. Holyfield was stronger, smarter, and the headbutts started again. In the first round, Holyfield butted Mike over the eye, the same spot that had been cut in the first fight. Mike's corner screamed at the referee. Mills Lane warned Holyfield but ruled it accidental. Mike was fuming. Round 2 was more of the same. Holyfield controlled the action. Mike couldn't get inside. He was slower, predictable, and the headbutts kept coming. By the end of round 2, Mike was bleeding above the eye. He was losing, again, and the frustration was building. In the corner before round 3, Mike's trainer told him to stay calm. But Mike wasn't calm. He was enraged. The bell rang for round 3. Mike came out aggressive, trying to land a knockout punch early. Holyfield, as always, was composed. They exchanged punches in the center of the ring. And then Holyfield clinched, tying Mike up against the ropes. And then, at 2:19 remaining in the round, it happened. In the clinch, with their bodies pressed together, Mike leaned his head down toward Holyfield's right shoulder, and he bit down, hard, on Holyfield's right ear. He bit through the protective headgear and into the cartilage. A 1-inch piece of Holyfield's ear came off in Mike's mouth. Mike spit it out onto the canvas. Holyfield immediately jumped back, his hands going to his ear. He was screaming, jumping up and down, pointing at his ear, and then at Mike. "He bit me! He bit my ear. Blood was pouring down the right side of Holyfield's face, streaming onto his shoulder and chest. The crowd was stunned into silence for a moment, then erupted in disbelief and chaos. Mills Lane, one of the most respected referees in boxing, didn't see the bite initially. He thought Holyfield had been punched, but Holyfield kept screaming and pointing at his ear. Lane walked over and looked closely. He could see the chunk was missing. The cartilage was torn and bleeding. Lane called time and brought both fighters to the center of the ring. He deducted 2 points from Mike for the foul. The ring doctor examined Holyfield's ear. It was bad, really bad. But Holyfield, tough as nails, said he wanted to continue. Mills Lane restarted the fight. And then, incredibly, unbelievably, Mike did it again. Less than a minute later, maybe 40 seconds, in another clinch, Mike bit Holyfield's left ear. This time, Mills Lane saw it clearly. He immediately pushed Mike away and stopped the fight. He waved his arms in an X pattern, the universal signal for disqualification. The fight was over. Mike Tyson was disqualified. The crowd erupted. Some booed Mike. Some threw cups, ice, and debris into the ring. Security rushed into the ring to protect both fighters. Holyfield was taken to his corner. Both ears were now bleeding. The chunk of cartilage from his right ear was still on the canvas, a grotesque piece of evidence. Mike was standing in his corner, chest heaving, looking defiant and angry. He didn't look sorry. He didn't look ashamed. He looked like he'd do it again if he had the chance. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Mike's corner tried to defend him, claiming the headbutts provoked him, but nobody cared. This wasn't boxing. This was assault. Holyfield was taken to the hospital. He needed plastic surgery to reattach the cartilage. The piece that Mike had bitten off was found on the canvas and brought to the hospital. Doctors were able to reattach it, but Holyfield would have permanent scarring. Mike left the arena through a side exit. No press conference. No apology. The next day, the headlines around the world screamed the same thing. Mike Tyson bites Holyfield's ear. The Nevada Athletic Commission held a hearing. They revoked Mike's boxing license. They fined him $3 million, 10% of his $30 million purse. And they suspended him for 1 year. Mike became a pariah. Sponsors dropped him. Endorsement deals were cancelled. Late-night comedians made jokes. The ear bite became a punchline. Mike had gone from the youngest heavyweight champion to a joke, from the most feared fighter in the world to someone who bit ears. That moment destroyed my reputation, Mike has said. People stopped seeing me as a fighter. They saw me as a monster, and I couldn't blame them. I was a monster that night. Mike Tyson is 58 years old now. He's had 27 years to reflect on the 28th of June 1997. And when the topic comes up, Mike doesn't hide from it. He owns it. I'm not proud of what I did, Mike has said. I was angry. I was frustrated. The headbutts were hurting me. But that's no excuse. I should have controlled myself. And I didn't. I let my anger take over. And I did something that will define me forever. Mike has apologized to Holyfield multiple times. They've appeared together on talk shows. They've laughed about it. They've become friends. In 2020, there were even talks of an exhibition fight between them, though it never happened. Holyfield has forgiven Mike. Mike was going through a lot, Holyfield has said. He wasn't himself. I forgave him a long time ago. But Mike knows that forgiveness doesn't erase history. People remember the ear bite, Mike says. They don't remember that I was the youngest champion. They don't remember the 91 seconds against Spinks. They remember the bite. And that's my fault. That's on me. I made that choice. And I have to live with it. Today, Mike has made peace with it. He's rebuilt his life. He runs Tyson 2, a cannabis company. He has a podcast. He lives in Las Vegas with his wife, Lakiha. He doesn't try to justify the ear bite. He doesn't make excuses. He owns it. And he's moved on. But he knows his legacy will always be tied to that moment. The 28th of June 1997. Round 3. 2:19 remaining. 3 seconds of rage that changed boxing history. Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear. Twice. A chunk of cartilage came off. Mills Lane disqualified Mike. And Mike's legacy was forever altered. That moment didn't just define the fight. It defined Mike, more than the championships, more than the knockouts. More than anything else Mike ever did in his career, the ear bite became his signature moment. And Mike hates that. But he understands it. I did something nobody had ever seen before. Mike says, in the worst way possible, and people don't forget that. They shouldn't forget it. It's part of who I was. Angry, broken, out of control. The question that haunts Mike's legacy is simple. What would people remember about Mike Tyson if he hadn't bitten Holyfield's ear? Would they remember the youngest champion? The 91 seconds against Spinks? The dominance? We'll never know, because the ear bite happened, and it can't be undone. Here's the final question. Was the ear bite the result of prison-breaking Mike Tyson, or was it always inside him, waiting to come out? The answer is probably both. Prison made Mike angrier, but the anger was always there. Cuss had taught Mike to channel it into disciplined violence. But without Cuss, without discipline, the anger exploded. And on the 28th of June 1997, the world saw what Mike Tyson looked like when rage replaced discipline. 3 seconds, 2 bites, one moment that defined a legacy forever.